to Balanced Living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pei.
And welcome. You are tuned into my weekly talk radio show called Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa every Tuesday at naturally high noon, broadcasting out of the Sunset Gower studio where Scandal and Murder, She Wrote and Newsroom are filmed at UBN Radio TV, Universal Broadcasting Network, and then every Thursday at 7, Saturday at 1 on my syndicated CNBC News Radio channel KCAA, AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and everywhere that iHeartRadio is. And this is a show not about scandal, not about gossip, and no K words, no Kardashian talk at all, because it's about hope and happiness and how you can be tuned into your own reality show to be happy 88% of the time. And so I have topics and guests to highlight those things. Everyone from Muhammad Ali's daughter, Layla Ali, to Marianne from Gilligan's Island, Dawn Wells, to Corey Feldman, to Potsy from Happy Days, Anson Williams, to Neil Donald Walsh and Michael Bernard Beckwith, Global Thought Leaders, Marianne Williamson, you name it. I've got them here on the podcast that tries to splatter you with more hope and happiness. You can get all of my past shows, those with camera, audio, and visual on my YouTube channel, free subscribe, and then audio only before we had the advent of cameras in the studio on iTunes. And you can also go to Stitcher and TuneIn and all other kinds of channels to get those podcasts, as well as UBN Radio and KCAA. And on my YouTube, though, you have added bonuses of my red carpet interviews. So if you missed any of those with Halle Berry and John Travolta and Quincy Jones and Fran Drescher, etc., please go to my YouTube and hit free subscribe. And if you feel like saying something nice, I would appreciate that too. And as always, go to Dr. Marissa on Facebook and give me the finger. But before we get to our guest today, I am also going to give an excellent customer service shout out, as I like to promote the good in what's going on and balance out what the bad and the crazy is going on in the media. So this week's shout out goes to Michelle, her supervisor at the Auto Insurance Specialists. And thank you very much for taking care of all my stuff. And now on to introducing my favorite millennial, Victoria Rook, for today's show. And today is actually the last week of the month, so it is Sexual Healing with Dr. Marissa, but I wanted to also talk and bring in the whole millennials, since we've been on the news, they've been on the news lately, and the things that the young'uns are doing to create change in the world. So I thought it would be a good time to bring on my favorite millennial, Victoria Rook, who is a storyteller and a businesswoman. Her passion for storytelling began at a young age, leading her from acting all the way to creating the stories themselves. In high school, she got her first directing role as assistant director for the drama club, and she fell in love. After launching several businesses, her newest adventure has brought her to be co-founder and president of Rook Studios, an interactive storytelling company. Their first project, SIN, and we'll be hearing more about that, will be making its debut this year through their live event and release of the graphic novel series. I know Victoria as a beautiful, lovely, talented young woman that I met when I became a member and then on faculty at CEO Space International, the largest university for entrepreneurs. And her father is a great entrepreneur, and of course all the kids are following, and we had a great bond. She offered to do my makeup for something, and so anybody that does that is definitely in my book, so I invited her to come on the show. So without further ado, please welcome Victoria Rook to the studio. And there's your affirming applause.
Okay. I love that intro.
You like that?
Yeah, we hit it off as best friends with the makeup for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. You've great style. I love any way creativity shows up. And it's funny, the number one career that people guess for me is actually fashion. Which is kind of, or a stylist or something like that. So I think that's pretty fun. And then I go, no, I'm sorry, I'm a psychologist. So, but we are definitely style and color sisters, for sure, for sure. But I brought you on because I thought it's about time. I think I've had, well, this is my 305th consecutive week on the air, believe it or not. And in that time, I think I've only had 3 shows about millennials, and I think that's pretty imbalanced. And so I wanted to correct that, and I also wanted to honor kind of the things that are going on out there with our young people, really taking charge of changing the landscape of our country, and really kind of being who they are. And so I thought we would visit and revisit what it means to be a millennial. And for those who are in my generation, even though I'm ageless, I call myself the bridge generation. And then there's the baby boomer generation. And then on the other side, the Gen X and the Gen Y. The whole transition has caused quite a bit of heartache, I think, for a lot of the generations that are, I would say, in the earlier technology forefront. And because of that, there's a lot of misunderstanding, there's a lot of blame, there's a lot of finger pointing, shaking of heads, what's wrong with you. So I wanted to take today's show to really put the moose on the table, which is my Canadian version of the elephant in the room, and talk about some stereotypes that people have about millennials, and then the upside. So the title of today's show is The Upside of Millennials. And I know that you're just one millennial, and that I'm asking you to speak for the, how many million? I mean, it's many million, I think, yeah. Right? Do you have that number? I meant to ask you to get that number, but
not specifically, but yes, it's a large generation. One of the tricky parts about it is people still have not become very definite on the starting year and the ending year. So it's kind of the 80s to like end of 90s up to the 2000s, somewhere in that range.
Mm-hmm. So millennials are about how old right now? Anywhere from...
Yeah, so the oldest millennial, they're right in their 30s actually right now.
Okay, early 30s and like low 20s.
Yeah,
something like that. Something like that. And what's interesting, I had this discussion with one of my daughter's friends who I carpool and take her home, and my daughter was sick today, so asking her, and we went through the whole generation of Gen X, Gen Y, and then millennials, and then now there is a Gen Alpha, apparently, because we've got to cycle back to the A's. But for the purpose of this particular show, I'm just going to group the whole generations that are, after the baby boomer, the older generation. So anything in that mix, I'm not going to get real particular, but just the newest thinking where there are a lot of stereotypes. So I'm going to list some of the ones that I heard just in working. I don't know if you know, I'm an organizational psychologist, so I get to go into companies and work things like miscommunication, conflict resolution, strategic planning, team building. And one of the biggest challenges companies have right now is that gap between the baby boomers and the millennial, totality younger generation. So let's start with the biggest moose on the table, which I've heard that you're lazy. Not you. I know you're not lazy. You're far from lazy.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. But the millennials or the younger generation are lazy. They don't want to work. They don't like to work. They won't do what you tell them to do. They cop an attitude, and they don't respect you. Like, they don't respect position. Yeah. So let's start with that moose on the table.
Sure. So yeah, the lazy, that's a big one. That's a big one. Really, it kind of comes down to living into your true power. So the millennials actually have a leg up in business against the previous generations due to social media and technology. Because businesses are now really trying to hone in on those strategies to grow their business and market and all of that, millennials are now able to really step up and become that voice with brand ambassadors, social media managers, tech teams, things like that. And so what happens is a lot of millennials actually get misunderstood. And so what they do is they join a workforce and become part of an operation. And because they're not really staying in their lane as far as like, that's a really big market that millennials can jump into and really take over and help other companies grow and thrive. And so if they're not being led in that direction and they're not being able to utilize their strengths and talents, then of course, you're going to look lazy. You're not going to look like you're doing your best and stuff because you're still trying to get a grasp on things. Mm-hmm. Now, not every millennial is super tech savvy, and that doesn't mean that just because you're a millennial, you can just master all things social media. But that's an advantage that we really do have over other generations because it's innate for us to know how to rise the engagement and post, share things, create that engaging content, stuff like that. And so whereas are they lazy? Not necessarily. It more often than not, in my opinion, it's that they're not being utilized in the workforce the way they truly can be. Mm-hmm. So when you're able to live into your strengths, you're able to be, seen really in your true power.
Yeah. And I try to work with my clients to get them to shift not just in their attitude towards millennial, but understanding that the strength of the millennial is to break down systems that no longer work well. And so, in the work arena, that's tough because we've done things a certain way and it's been leader driven and it's been top down and that's the way it is and that's the way it's going to stay. Well, this attitude or this either non-interest or alternative interest is pushing against that whole BS, that belief system that this is the way work is done, this is the way we're doing it, this is the way it's always been. And I try to, get people to, grab their neck by the scruff of the neck up to the 88,000-foot look and say, look, the world is changing, business is changing, everything's changing. So instead of fighting it or labeling or devaluing, let's leverage, which is exactly what you're saying. So, that I think is a huge competitive advantage if companies can get to that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's move, because it is a Sexual Healing with Dr. Marissa episode last week of every month. And I don't know if you know why I even do this. It's because in our generation, you didn't talk about sex. You didn't talk about pleasure. You didn't talk about, and so everything went underground, and then you learn not from your best sources, your peers or porn. And those two things don't necessarily affirm how great pleasure is in life. It's one of the gifts of life. And so when I heard the statistic that 85% women fake orgasms, I said, you know what, we have to talk about this. So I try to talk at least once every other month on this topic. And my children are poor things. They say at dinner time, Mom, can we make it through one meal where you don't use the V word? Because I want to go I'm determined to make pleasure a G-rated topic. But I do want you to address the whole it seems like, and this is a perception, that the millennials or the newer generation are very, what's a good way to state this? I thought about it last night and I couldn't come up with anything. I thought I would have it by today, but maybe not. But they're very, well, there's no fear, and there's this, you know, if I put the moose on the table, it's this almost in your face, this is who I am, and I can make up categories of gender orientation that have never been made up before, and then it has all the stodgy. No, I shouldn't say stodgy. That was value. that was a bash. You have all of the extreme, you know, religious, you know, Puritan, all up in arms, because this is, you know, Sodom and Gomorrah all over, and, you know, everybody's going to hell in a handbasket. So what is all of this around? I actually have a hunch that it is about sexual healing in and of itself. These, you know, the categories, or who am I, and what is my preferred orientation.
Right. Yeah, and again, you know, I can't speak for every millennial, but from my observations with our culture and the millennial, you know, age group and stuff, it feels more like it's a sexual freedom. It's kind of, to me, like a sexual rebellion. So whereas our previous generations, like you said, that was kind of more of a taboo subject. That wasn't something that you could talk about at the dinner table. It's now all become super open. And so you go on the news and there's all this sexual violence and abuse and all of that. And I think part of that is adding to the conversation and adding to the need of having that conversation. And so people are kind of, you know, done with it. You know, it's like, if something like that happens, we should not feel that the victims need to go and hide. We shouldn't shame people into feeling one way about it or the other. You know, we really need to create that environment that's safe so that people can address topics like that. As far as the categorization and all of that, I think it also comes down to the freedom stance. I think that, once again, with it being such a non-G-rated conversation, people want to be authentic. At the end of the day, people want to be their authentic selves. And so when people are feeling like they might not fit in the body that they were born in, or psychologically they're feeling like they are attracted to one or both or none of the above or something like that.
Or all of the above.
Or all of the above. Yeah, exactly. You know, people want to be able to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And you can actually look into other cultures back in like Native American, when they were all in America and they weren't thrown out type of thing. There was actually a respect held for people who were non-binary, or you know, they didn't affiliate with a girl or as a boy, but kind of a combination of the two. And so you can really see that, you know, just the differences in the cultures and that sort of thing, as far as, you know, where do people stand on that? Right. And so it really comes down to a freedom thing. People are tired of it being a taboo subject. People just want to be themselves. And so I think it comes down to respect. And I think millennials are really trying to, you know, in some ways, maybe not the best way to do it. It might come off as very forceful. So it's no wonder that the previous generations are like, oh my gosh. But
right.
So it might come out a little bit harsh, but I think that's really what we're trying to do here, is create that welcoming environment where victims can say something, where people who don't feel like they fit the mold can say something, and we can really create that atmosphere of love without judgment. Right.
And if you've just tuned in, and if you're wondering who the beautiful young woman I am talking to on the air today, it is Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, and it is the last week of the month. Therefore, it is Sexual Healing with Dr. Marissa, and I thought I would bring also someone who I haven't done a lot of shows for the millennial generation, and I wanted to sort of balance that out a little. So I brought my favorite millennial, Victoria Rook, to the studio, and that's what we're talking about. We're putting the moose on the table as far as different stereotypes that are hurting the relationship between the old and the new, and how we can see the upside and a different perspective so we can have more synergistic work between the two. And we just finished talking about the whole gender orientation and the whole sexual orientation, and the message. And while you were talking, I really had a visual of the forcefulness in which these messages and the stands and the adamancy of this generation saying, this is who I am and you better value who I am, even though I don't fit in your boxes or in your census or in any of those check here, because it's because we came from the pendulum being this far, and it was so wrong, and it was so exclusive, and it was so binary, that we are seeing that swing all the way to this end. And it's kind of like you have to do that. You know, I say that you can't get to the middle by just going to the middle. So in getting to the middle, we may have to have that, you know, that heightened, angry, whatever that forceful stance is. And then, you know, the Me Too movement and all of the collateral that came out of the Weinstein effect. So we're seeing that now. And again, I'm always going to be more Pollyanna. And what's funny, Victoria, I had the last time I did a millennial show, he said something about being Polly, and I said, "Oh, I'm Polly too," because my middle name is Pollyanna, and it was very funny because he meant something else by that. He was all like happy that I was Polly, and when I realized it was Pollyanna I was talking about, he was like, "Oh, yeah, what?" Anyways, I digress. But okay, so that I understand, and if the older generation can, again, take that look there, and if the younger generation can understand the strength of an old, comfortable, this is the way it is, and how threatening this new technological world is. I mean, my generation, I watched, and we, you know, kind of tittered a little bit when, you know, grandma couldn't do the remote. So we've gone from that to a completely IT world where, of course, if you're having to move from, you were valued in what you knew technologically in terms of content in your area of expertise, to now being taught by a youngin' how to do your job, that's not easy to move into. And so I always ask the younger generation to also, you know, walk that mile in the moccasins, to appreciate and to acknowledge the expertise that they have in other areas instead of getting super impatient.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Once again, it comes down to respect. You know, just like we want to be respected for our strengths and our talents, we absolutely need to respect the previous generations and the ground that they've laid for us, and all of that, keeping it in balance. You know, you want to keep that balance between the two. Yeah,
that is something, though, I have heard firsthand, is that millennials do not respect positional authority, and that they will push up against it and challenge it and say, no, you know, I won't do that, which is unheard of in the old school, where it's like, you know, if you don't say yes, ma'am, and yes, sir, you can find your job somewhere else. So that clash is a big one, big one. So what's your take on that?
So I think it's a perspective difference.
Okay.
And once again, it's going to be one of those things where it might not be executed the way it should be. But I feel that it's a stage of rebellion and of what we value. So I feel like our generation very much values the principle of everybody having their own voice, everybody having their own opinion, everybody having their own stance, and having the freedom to express that. Mm-hmm. Whereas the previous generation is like, you know, a lot of them are like, if that's not the way we do it, we can't do it that way. And our generation is so expressive that it's quite jarring, you know? So
right.
I think it's one of those things where our generation values the freedom of having a voice. Mm-hmm. And the previous generations, the majority of them, value the order. and the organization and the structure of society. And so when you have these two opposites, whereas they feel obedience is the organization to society, and whereas the younger generation feels that having a voice is what makes up a really great society, those two are very opposite. And so they're going to butt heads no matter what, if they're both taking those stances and don't listen to each other's feelings about that. And so I think that's where it's really stemming from. And so it would come across as a disrespectful, not revering authority type of attitude if it's not backed up with I think it should be done this way and this is why.
Right.
Giving that background and stating how you feel about something is going to get you through any conflict.
Right. And that's the tough one, because the old way is because I told you so.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you have to pay your dues. You have to pay your dues, and that's really tough, because middle managers especially, they have worked so hard thinking that one day they're going to be able to call the shots and put people through the same hell that they went through climbing that ladder. And then I come in as an organizational psychologist and say, sorry, that is not going to cut it. You're going to have to be emotionally intelligent as well as technically intelligent, because it's relationship and task now, which is, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. And I think that both sides have to really work on that one, because I'll tell you, the win-win and the upside of having the clashes is there's more and more people, especially young people, entrepreneurial and being super creative and really saying, no, I don't have to know people. I can take my unique skill and talent and put it on YouTube and get discovered on my own. Thank you very much. I don't need to know someone in the industry. I don't need to whatever. And so it's a whole new ball game, I think, for the planet. And I have the millennials to thank for that. I really think that this generation is breaking down some systems that have kept us small, that have kept us mediocre, that have kept us walking like the Stepfords, and saying, no, this is a giant, beautiful, you can do anything. Like all of those BS belief systems, you can only do one thing, you have to go to school for one thing, you have to work the rest of your life for that one thing, even if you hate your job, and if you hate your job, you can't quit because you're used to the money. Now it's like, no, you can do anything you want. You can do this chapter for your life, and then you can do another chapter, and you can do another chapter. I love doing midlife opportunity consulting, because people, can move from a successful position into a successful small business, and they're happy, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what other stereotypes? I know I had you do some research, and I don't want to miss out. What's another one that you've heard?
So one of my favorites that I think I fit into very well, so I'm a little bit biased, is the millennials mooch off their parents. So we do see a lot of millennials living at home. This is true. But what people fail to recognize is that we are the generation that grew up during the second greatest recession in history. So we've seen the struggles of what it's like to not be able to provide for your family, or to really be struggling to do so. And we simply don't want that for our kids and for our future spouse and the family that we have. And it's one of those things that, where it looks like, oh, well, they're just staying at home all day and that sort of thing. That's not what it is at all. It's actually more that because we want to create that foundation and create that security for ourselves, we push off getting married. So we're getting married later, we're having kids later, and we're making work the priority now. So yeah, so it's one of those things where it looks like you're just staying at home, but we're really just shifting it. And so these milestones that the older generation thinks that we ought to do early on is actually not a strategy of laziness, but one of self-preservation. We want to make sure that we're secure. And according to financial advisor Dave Ramsey, nearly 60% of millennials have saved up the same amount as only half the baby boomers have for retirement.
Wow. Dave Ramsey's on my station, by the way. Did you know that? Dave Ramsey's on. Yeah, the CNBC station. There you go. That's awesome. I'll tell him that you quoted him. But that's pretty amazing. That is pretty amazing. So we might have to think of the stereotype that you spend money like water too, because that's not true, right? According to that statistic. Totally different. Yeah.
And it's just a shift in perspective. So these milestones that people were getting married so young and they were having kids so young, we're switching that around. Mm-hmm, we really care about that security and with growing up with the economic state that we grew up in, and then now today with the uncertainty of the politics and the economy and all that, it's no wonder that our generation is one of the most financially cautious generations that there is, you know?
Mm-hmm. Great. And I'm getting the signal that it's time to thank our sponsors of today's show. We'll be right back with more of the upside of millennials with my favorite millennial, Victoria Roop. We'll be right back in 2 and 2. Remember, it's all about balance. Peace in and peace out. Love films? Support diversity? Then come to the Newport Beach Film Festival, a prestigious multicultural event attracting over 55,000 attendees and screening over 350 films in 8 days. Orange County's largest entertainment event will run April 26th to May 3rd, and yours truly, Dr. Marissa, will be introducing the Chinese Spotlight film on April 30th. So for the best in new, local, internationally, and critically acclaimed cinema, get your tickets at NewportBeachFilmFest.com. That's NewportBeachFilmFest.com. Are you tired of being tired? Are you ready for more balance in your life? Then come to the beach and work with Dr. Marissa, motivational speaker, author, organizational psychologist, and host of the 2016 Podcast of the Year Top 10 in Health award-winning show, Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa. If you are ready to choose more hope and happiness no matter what's happening around you, then go to www.drmarissa.tv today. And we are back. You are tuned into my weekly talk radio show called Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa every Tuesday at naturally high noon out of the Sunset Gower Studios in Hollywood, California with UBN Radio TV, Universal Broadcasting Network, and then every Thursday at 7, Saturday at 1 on my syndicated CNBC, NBC News radio channel, KCAA AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and everywhere that iHeartRadio is. And this is a show about hope and happiness, and today's topic is the upside of millennials. And we have Victoria Rook, who just dispelled, 1, that they are mooching off their parents, and 2, that they are... did we do short attention? Sex. We did the sex one, the sexual orientation, and we did one other one. Lazy, right? Lazy and disrespectful. So I want to now kind of switch gears because I think we did. I think we did a great job illustrating the upside. So I want to highlight the upside of things that you're doing as a businesswoman and now taking your love of theater into a business. Tell me about SIN, S-I-N.
Yep, SIN. So SIN started out actually as a story that my dad started writing when I was really young. And I remember walking into the studio and hearing my mom and my dad kind of bounce ideas off of each other for this story. And when I came to him and said, I really want to start pursuing film, he was like, great, I have some awesome intellectual property for you to work with. So took it over, rewrote some pieces, furthered the character development, things like that. And so we're actually in the process of launching it as a full media franchise. So we have the screenplay written out, that's getting edited. We have a Kickstarter campaign launching this summer for the graphic novel series. And we're in the process of launching our first little mini event just next week, where we're going to be doing a small reenactment of the play, and we're going to have live actors and fire breathers, and it's going to give people just a taste of what the full live production is going to look like when we take it on tour.
Nice. And what does SIN stand for?
Well, it's SIN. It's just
it is about sin. Okay, so it's about sin.
It is.
In the
about
traditional,
sin.
yeah, just
It's
so.
about sin. So it's a story of hope and healing,
Huh.
and we follow the main character named Devin. He has an awful tragedy happen to him, and then because of that, he spirals. So he makes a lot of bad decisions, and then at the end of it, realizes what he's done, and then tries to rectify his mistakes. And in the end, what he learns is the choices in your life are your own, but the consequences are paid for by others.
Ooh, I like
right?
that. I like that. That is very. I can think of 100,000 people who fall under that category right there, if not more. So that's cool. Using art to do a life education, or yeah. So when is the event?
So our event is taking place next Sunday,
which is the date of
March 25th.
March 25th. Okay. So actually that's going to be 2 days before. Yes. Okay. But they can still participate in the Kickstarter, right?
Yeah.
From now until June.
Yeah. So the launch of that is going to be June 21st, and so we have early access going on from now until then, where you can go to supportsin.com, kind of tongue-in-cheek URL. And you can enter your information, and then you're going to be able to get some exclusive insight on what's going on behind the scenes. You get to be a part of the movement, and really what this does is it deals with a lot of heavy topics. The story deals with a lot of depression and anxiety and suicide, and these are some things that are really near and dear to my heart, and another reason that I really jumped on board with this with my dad. And if it's something that you're passionate about too, to be able to talk to the millennials about this type of thing, and being able as a parent to equip yourself with kind of getting a little bit of that deeper look into what that really looks like for the youth today, because it deals with today's youth issues. If you're passionate about that in any sort of way, I would encourage you to go and be a part of this, so we can really get that message out to the next generation. Yeah,
it sounds great. Support Sin. It sounds like it's like a glue. It's a road of connection. So whether you're a millennial and you are familiar with depression or making choices that have consequences that hurt others or yourself, and that you don't feel like you have choices, or I do. This is another one of those. It's not a stereotype, because I come up with my clients all the time where the older generation is perplexed that the younger generation has anything to be depressed about, because they have, much more than the older generation may have grown up with. So you have no reason to be depressed. You have no reason to be anxious. You should be able to snap yourself out of it, and what's wrong with you, and why are you cutting, and why are you making foolish choices. And the why is not always the most helpful question to ask. And solution is a good vibration to be in. So it sounds like this is art in action. Art in healthy action. There's a new byline for you. That is sounds like a wonderful way to connect. So Support Sin, tongue in cheek. That's not part of the title. Supportsin.com is where you would go to connect with Victoria and connect with this whole movement. Yes. Yeah. Let's see. Ages of your audience. What are you looking for?
So because it deals with some heavier topic, we're generally saying about 16 and up to about college age. However, it's definitely something that if you want to start talking to your kids about this early on, so that they're equipped and know what to do when they face these situations, and when they come across these paths in life where they don't really know how to handle their emotions and things are going on that they can't control, it's a really great place to start.
Great. That's fabulous. So what's your life motto? Because you're a little bit different than the average. I don't know who to blame for that, or who to give credit for, your father, or your mom and your sisters. You have a very unique family, very entrepreneurial. You know, everybody's very, very creative. What do you wake up in the morning saying?
I think one of my mottos is never feel the need to justify yourself to others in pursuit of your dream. I think a lot of people get caught up on making sure that they do the right thing the right way so that they look good to others as they pursue their dream, rather than just going with their gut instinct and realizing, I know the path I want to take to achieve my dream. So you might not have to go to college, for example, to, you know, be a filmmaker. I know.
My recovering tiger mom just went, "Ah!"
I know, but
my daughter's gonna have a fun with this one, but no, I know. No. I totally. I don't think I'll get it in this lifetime. Maybe the next one. But I absolutely, you know, I'm stuck because I absolutely value traditional education. Obviously, you know, I had a fork in the road, and my father said, you know, you've always wanted the PhD, get a PhD, music can wait. And so I gave up what my passion was at the time. And in retrospect, I can still do my music now, and I do. And so he was right. And there is, you know, I go to a lot of career days and say to kids, you can do anything you put your heart and mind to. And education is one of those things that nobody could ever foreclose on you or steal from you or, you know, hijack from you. So get as much as you can as quickly as you can, because it still opens doors. But I do know that is changing. And the same time that I tell you, you can do anything you want, and you don't have to do the traditional way. I understand that, but I think we're really at that time where we're being buffered by both of those concepts. But I appreciate you pushing the edge of my envelope there.
I didn't know that would do that. That's really funny. I mean,
you're still my favorite millennial. Don't worry. Outside of my daughters, but.
I just won't discourage anyone from going to college. We'll just keep it secret.
Yeah.
But,
you don't have to. You don't have
right,
to.
Exactly.
But as long as the baby boomers are still in positions of authority in the gatekeepers of organizations, if you want to go that way, they're still going to be looking. And it is, you know, a door opener, not a door closer.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where you have to look at yourself and see if that's something for you. And so that was just the one that popped up in my head, as far as that's always a huge, I'm in a big creative community, and that's always like, do I go to college for film? Do I not go to college for film? Do I go to college to be a musician? Do I not? You know, and there's lots of ways that you can attain education these days.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people give into the pressure of one way or the other. Not every parent does encourage you to go to college. Some say don't, and go to, you know, other ways to get the education, the experience to pursue your dream.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you shouldn't have to choose a path that someone else is trying to put out there for you. You shouldn't feel the need to justify your actions by going one way or the other in pursuit of your dream.
Got it.
Beautiful. You know the path that you need to take.
Yeah.
And so you need to be able to embrace that and not feel that pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. I 150% agree with you on that. And the last question that I always ask all of my guests is, what are you most grateful for? Or who are you most grateful to?
Oh my gosh. Okay. That's like a 30-minute segment right there.
No, get 30 seconds.
So, this is so pressurous. I know my dad, my mom, my boyfriend, actually now my fiance. I'm really grateful for my family. Let's group them together. Incredibly supportive. I mean, you know them personally.
Yes, I do.
Incredibly supportive. No matter what career path I wanted to take, they were right there. They got me the equipment I needed for things and all of that. And then with my fiance now in that picture, I couldn't have picked a more supportive partner in life. They're really, really amazing people.
Yay.
I love them.
Yay. Wonderful. I knew you were going to say that. But, and then Asian Oprah giveaway. So I'm about to go into my close, which is the balance bar, but I know that I saw an email. I didn't have time to open it on the way to the studio, but you have an Asian Oprah giveaway?
Yes, I do. have a little gift for everybody. So for those of you who are interested in looking more into sin and how it can help you as a teen, if you're an educator and you want to be able to kind of utilize this to be able to speak to your kids, as if you're a parent, what we are giving to you is called the Sin Teaser. And it gives a little bit of a background of sin. You actually get some never before seen conceptual art that's in there in the document, and some behind the scenes things that are a little bit about the making of sin. And so it is one of those gifts that
the original sin. The original sin. Sorry.
The original sin. Yeah. So it's one of those gifts that really is going to be something that we hope to help inspire people to really see the hope and healing on the other side of their tragedies. And where we really see sin with this is we're hoping to help a lot of teenagers through their struggles.
Great. That's beautiful. And they get that from your website, or is that how supportsin.com? Beautiful. Well, time's up. Can you believe it? It was quick, and I know there's a couple of other stereotypes we didn't get to, but we covered enough of everything that I wanted to cover. That's not true. It's never enough. But I am so glad that I got to introduce you to my listening audience and watching audience, and that I have balanced a little bit on my millennial listener side. And I'm hoping that you will all go and support sin, literally, and go to supportsin.com, connect with Victoria. Know that we are all in this together, and we can do amazing things on the planet if we are more cooperative and valuing of each other across generational differences than we are if we're constantly shaking our heads and wishing that people would think like we do. So that is my closing little quip there. I wish you the very, very, very best. I know the rest of your life is going to be a series of chapters of constant creative joy and peace and love and abundance and well-being. And I see that for you. I know that for you. And so it is. Yay! And that was Victoria Rook, and it is at the end of the show. Welcome to my balance bar, when I invite you to step up and balance a little more. You just heard one Asian Oprah giveaway. The second one is 2 free tickets to the Newport Beach Film Festival Pacific Showcase Party. It is a big party. It's all you can drink and eat and entertainment, and every year I've been a proud sponsor of the Pacific Showcase and of the Chinese Spotlight film. I get to go to AMC theaters and stand at the bottom and introduce the show. I'm asked every year. This year I'm actually covering the red carpet day at the opening as well. So join me at the NewportBeachFilmFest.com. Get your tickets, but if you want 2 free passes to the big gala and the film, be the first 2 to go to my Dr. Marissa Facebook page and give me the finger, a thumbs up, and then message me, and that will be April the 30th, I believe. Yeah, April 30th is the party. And so say I want to go to the Pacific Showcase at the Newport Beach Film Festival. And that is for the second Asian Oprah giveaway. The other thing for the balance bar is round 82 of the 21-day Fast from Complaining with Dr. Marissa is going to start on April Fool's Day, April 1st. No fooling. Another great round. I started this July 1st, 2011. I can't believe it. I do have persistent, and I am absolutely determined to splatter hope and happiness every single day. If you've joined me on the fast, please go to forbalance.org, and that way you'll join the round. If you complete 21 days, you get a free motivational card pack, and when my 8 Ways to Happiness from Wherever You Are book comes out in August, you'll get a signed copy of that book. So join the fast, get the app that was made by teenagers to help you complain less and love and appreciate more, and that will get you into more balance. Sedona, you have 1 more week to save $300 and then join me in the vortexes, in the beauty and magic of Sedona, Arizona, which I think is more beautiful than the Grand Canyon. It's a place for healing. It's a place for re-energizing. And I teach you still and moving meditation as well as some balance tools. So it's a great weekend to come. That's May 19th and 20th, always the weekend after Mother's Day. Let's see. I think that's it, except to tell you I have a treat for you next week. April Fool's Week on the air with Dr. Marissa. It is going to be the son of the famous Mickey Rooney. His name is Jeff Rooney. I got to meet him at a red carpet event, Salvation Army at the Grove, the kettle kickoff last year. He's a character. He can do 400 different voices. So you'll be hearing at least 25 of them, I'm sure, over the course of the show. He's delightful. He's coming in studio. He just texted me yesterday, and looking forward to having him on the air. That is Jeff Rooney, Mickey Rooney's son, next week on Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balance with Dr. Marissa Pay. That's P for positive, E-I, and remember, it's all about balance. Peace in and peace out.
To take away the part of me that wants to stay. It's all I want.
This is Dick from Carpet Master.